Well, hi everyone. My name is Omar Kashad. I'm one of the adult services librarians here at the Carroll Stream Public Library. Hopefully you can hear me and see my screen. As part of my background, since I was hired here so many years ago, I was teaching computer classes. And then I've also been interested in helping out with helping digital skills for job seekers as well as businesses. So I've been doing this Grow with Google series where basically Google provided the slides and the materials, and I've been presenting on them on a variety of topics. I remember some of the business ones were like how to get your business online. There was also some stuff about, skills for job seekers and stuff like that. But I wanted to finish the current series because we're going to be taking July and August off with digital skills for everyday tasks. Because basically, this is just a brief overview of ways that you can collaborate remotely through the cloud, which I'll explain all that in a moment, using Google's suite of products. But again, you don't have to use Google in order to do this. There are other competitors out there. For example, Microsoft Office offers a competing service in terms of what's called Office 365, which is what we use here at the library. But we also use Google products as well. I don't know if any of you are big Star Wars fans, but for the May the 4th Star Wars celebration last month, I did an escape room using Google Forms, where basically I was able to create a series of questions, and then if you answered correctly, you went on to the next question. If you answered incorrectly, you were taken back to the original question. But I was able to do that through Google Forms, so I'm certainly very much used to collaborating with my coworkers, whether through Google or whether through Microsoft products. So let's go ahead and click over to the next slide. So Google has some, before we get started, Google has some general tips in terms of tips for working remotely. The way they see it, and I would agree with a lot of this, is when you're working remotely, you really want to keep your routine. Whether or not that means that you'll be, you set aside like X amount of hours for, not just working, but like exercise, when you do lunch, when when are you working, really dedicate yourself towards it. That's how it was for me when I was, applying for library jobs. I had to keep my routine where I was constantly, making sure that these hours of the day were when I was applying for jobs. The other good thing is, creating a dedicated work spot and then customizing it. As much as I like that photo there on the right, and I actually have the same headphones that the gentleman in that photo is wearing, that's probably not the best idea if you're trying to work remotely. I'm sure we've seen the fun little news clips online of kids sort of like video bombing their parents while they're working. But you don't really want to do that. You really want to be have a desk. If it looks professional, you'll feel professional. And so, as much as I like that photo, I don't know that I recommend, creating a dedicated work spot. That's really what you want to have in mind. Partly because I think that USB plug for his headphones is probably going to snap off the way it's sitting there on his leg. Of course, you do want to schedule your lunch and your breaks. This would be the same as if you were in the office. Don't run yourself ragged if you can. You do need your energy and you do need your breaks to mentally, get away from work. Of course, making sure that you have the tools that you need, whether that's physical materials like like calculators or pens or what have you, but also your digital tools as well. Here at the library, we were fortunate for the full-time staff that we got our own laptops to help us work remotely and collaboratively, especially in the wake of COVID-19. Of course, you also want to create a daily to-do list the day before can be helpful if you can. I certainly have my to-do list when I come into the office because I really don't work remotely that often, but creating a daily to-do list is a good idea. When it means give your coworkers grace, what that means is if you're all working remotely, realize that answers may not come instantaneously depending on when your coworkers are doing their work hours, and realize that it may take some time to get a response. But just give them some grace in that regard. And this one has been pretty contentious in the news lately. If you're not at work, don't work. But we live in a 24/7 connected world, and there has been a lot of push also from Google to get employees to come back into the office. But I think what they're just saying is if you're not at work, don't obsess or don't think over work, just relax. You work a 9-to-5 job, or if you're full time, and just, mentally, disconnect yourself from the job is the way I've heard it. Allow yourself mental breaks. So some of the things we're going to be doing in this class is what's mentioned right here on this next slide about everyday tasks where remote work includes, ways of keep track of to-do lists, plan tomorrow's tasks today, as it says. If you're trying to collaborate in virtual documents, which is what we do here at the library a lot, we'll show you how to do that through Google Form or Google Docs. And then also, ways you can share your progress using another product called Google Slides. So today's agenda is, as I just said, I'm going to show you a little bit about how you can create a to-do list with Google Sheets, how you can create a meeting agenda with Google Docs, how to build a presentation using Google Slides and additional resources. Now, the thing with Google products is you don't need to have a Gmail account, which is Google's email account, in order to sign up for a Google account. Case in point for myself. I do have a personal Gmail account, but my work account is not a Gmail account. It's a cslibrary.org account, if you will. But you can create a Google account without the need to then have yet another email. You basically go to accounts.google.com, or as it says in this little video image here, this little sign in the top right of the Google, if you've ever used it. Well, what you do is you sign in and then you create a Google account using your existing email. That's how it is for me here at work. I'm using my existing work email, and then you'll create a unique password, which for security reasons, I don't recommend having your current email password be the same as your Google account password, but you can then create your own account. And then what you'll have then is you will then be able to then save to the cloud. So what is the cloud exactly? Well, sorry, this thing's stuck. So this is basically what it's indicating right here. After you sign in with your Google account, they're trying to encourage you to get a Google account. They want you to have a Gmail account, but again, you don't need to have a Gmail account in order to get a Google account. Just like I don't believe you necessarily need like a Outlook account to have an Office 365 account. I'm not certain of that, but I don't believe that's the case. But anyway, so as I said, you can create a Google account without the need for a gmail.com account, because mine ends in cslibrary.org. But again, everything at that point is, and this is, you're creating a password, as I mentioned. The thing with the Google applications, though, like for example, the products they list here, they're on what's called the cloud. So if you're like, well, what, we all hear about the cloud, and chances are probably most of us know what the cloud is. But if you don't know what the cloud is the way everyone's like, oh, well, it's just up there in little bits and pieces up above me, just like a cloud in the sky. Well, that's not really what it is. The cloud is basically somebody else's computer. What that means is that Google has these, what they're called servers, where basically you save through the internet to a server, which is usually in some other country, or else in the US. Some places very cool because these servers get really, really hot. You save to those computers, if you will, or servers, and then what happens is you can then access these documents anywhere through the internet. This is why it's called the cloud, because I can sit here in Carol Stream, I can look up, I can see a cloud. You can be in Schaumburg, or probably that's a little too far, but regardless, you can be in like Bloomingdale or Glendale Heights, or Wheaton, and we can all look up, we can all see the same cloud. And because we can all see the same cloud, that's sort of what it's saying is, you're looking at the cloud, is the way I think of it. But anyway, so you basically access these Google applications and your documents and all the work you do through them through the internet, which is good when the internet works. Also, if the servers are working at Google, which is pretty few and far between, but you do hear about outages. So, just something to be aware of is the cloud is, a way of accessing your documents or your resources through the internet that you can then access from anywhere. It's not like you saved it to your laptop and then you went to another state and then you forgot your laptop and now you can't access your files. You can through any internet application. And because all of the software, if you will, like Google Docs is available through the google.com website or through Google Drive, which I'll explain what that is in a moment, is what that means is that, again, you don't need software. You don't need the laptop. You need something that will connect you to the internet in order to access these files. So to access Google Drive, and I'll probably be able to do like a hands-on demonstration of this at the end of the presentation, is you can click Google Apps. That's indicated by this little circle here up at the top right. The reason why this says A now is because this person logged in and their first initial is A. But basically, you click these dots and you'll then launch Google. And then of the options that appear in the little menu below it, one of them is what's called Google Drive. Google Drive is where all of these files are saved to. Now with the Google suite of products, though, you get up to 15 gigabytes of data for free, or storage space for free. Microsoft is a little bit more stingy. They only give you 5 gigabytes, but if you go over that amount, then you'll just have to pay more. Usually, like Word documents don't create. Usually, these files, if you get enough of them, yes, you'll reach the 15 gigabyte limit. But usually, Word documents, unless you're using a lot of images or a lot of video files, you're usually not in too much danger of hitting these limits. But you can buy additional storage space if you need to. So yeah, quick tip, clicking a Google Apps icon, whether that's Google Docs, Google Sheets, Google Forms, Google Presentations, etc., will it will then create a new file, which we'll see here in a moment. So here we are, we click the 3 dots, there's a bunch of little resources below it. In this case, here's Google Drive, here, 1, 2, 3, 4th down on the left. And you can click that and be taken to all of your saved files. Now, if you go down even further on this list, which we don't really see in this particular still is, that's where you'll see like Google Docs or Google Forms, etc. But if you click Google Drive, it will then give you the opportunity to create a new file in any of these cloud-based products. Sorry, let's see here. Okay, so after we access Google Drive through clicking that link, this is what we see. This is a current up-to-date photo. I just accessed my Google Drive earlier today just to make sure all this was pretty much up to date. You can then, if you have any files, they'll be right here. And if you don't have any files, then they won't be here. But anyway, but the thing is, here's that new option, as I said up here on the left, where you click new, it'll then say, it'll show you a demonstration. This is in just a moment, but you'll click new and it'll say, well, what do you want to do? And then you'll go from there. So, so here's an example of creating a to-do list using Google Sheets. Google Sheets is basically the equivalent of Microsoft Excel. If any of you use Excel, I'm a power user of Excel, but anyway, what happens is, so you're going to go to Google Drives, you're going to click that new option, as I said, here we see it circled. You're going to click the Google Sheets option, which as we see right here is just further down the list. Now we can either create a blank spreadsheet or we could create something from a template. Even Microsoft Excel has templates. Templates are basically pre-rendered or pre-formatted documents, I should say, that will then allow you to quickly and easily do things based on what it says. Like, for example, Microsoft Word has built-in resume templates, which I sometimes direct patrons to if they're in a rush and they want to create a resume. But anyway, so here's some of their template gallery, of which there are a few examples, but we can see here is the to-do list, and this is still available. I will show what this, I just accessed this exact same template this morning. And then we've got our annual budget. We've got some budget stuff. You've also, if you used any templates recently, they'll be shown up here, but we're going to create from a template a to-do list. Now, what happens is when we create the to-do list, it's really nice. It's already pre-formatted everything for us. We've got our to-do list, and then it'll even give us a running tally of how many tasks that we've completed. But what happens is, as you're creating your to-do list, for starters, if you want to rename your file, you can sort of see this moving up here at the top. All you have to do is click where this says to-do list. If you click that, then it'll allow you to rename it to something more useful. For example, this is an example of what's going to be a yard sale to-do list. Now, as you're editing your document, you're probably saying, okay, well, I got to remember to save it. I don't want to forget saving it. I've had a document that I had on my computer. I forgot to click save, and then my computer shut down, and then I wasn't able to save it. Well, all Google products, because they're on the cloud, they're designed to save automatically after every time you change something within a few moments. Occasionally, you may see a little pop-up that says your document has been saved. That's why if you ever click this file option here below yard sale to-do list, you will never see it say save. It saves automatically. So just something to be aware of, that all these files save automatically to the cloud. You don't have to worry about having to save it. Now, that said, though, just be aware if you have a power outage and you suddenly lose your computer automatically shuts off, just know that you may not have the exact to the second save, but as it says right here in this little line all the way to the left of file edit view, it says the last edit was seconds ago. And again, it's keeping track of these things. Now, as you're working on your sheet, what's really nice about this to-do list is the way that this template already formatted it is that it has these check mark boxes, And as you click this checkmark box, this is what's called conditional formatting. Well, basically it'll automatically put a line through every task that has been completed when you click the checkmark date. So as you're adding your tasks and you're adding your dates, and again, you can change all of this. You can change the dates, you can change the styling of completed items that are, you see, here's what it's talking about the conditional formatting. These are just some general tips. You can also sort as well, which I won't go too much into, but basically it's basically saying is that the way this has been formatted, you can do this in Excel as well, is you click the checkmark box and the to-do list item is put a line through it, which is really helpful. That way, visually, what have I done and what have I not done. Now, in addition to populating your sheet, you can see here's the little arrow here is it's also possible to insert or delete rows as well. And then in case they use the right click, but there's also a possibility of going up to, and then here they are, of course, changing, what's written in the cell. This is just a preview of what's possible. Prepare the budget for review. This is not that yard sale to-do list. I don't know why they had that earlier, but anyway, this is more work related. You're preparing the budget for review. You can see that they're changing the dates on it to something more contemporary. As you can see, this was initially recorded about 3 years ago, but these steps are all the same. Here they are. They're going to go in now, and then again, they're going to go in and they're going to change the sort item using drop-down menu. Yeah, create a meeting agenda, which we're going to get to a little bit later on in this presentation. And again, they're going to change the date again. This is very similar to Excel or any spreadsheet software if you've ever used it before. But yeah, so they've gone ahead and created all those things. And then next what we're going to see is, and that's basically, the end of that part of the thing. It's, it's pretty straightforward. You can add cells, you can delete cells, you can either right click or you can click the little insert menu option up here as well. Like here's an example as they're going to add columns and then populate rows. Again, you click the insert option, you go down to columns. Again, the first step though is that you want to, first of all, you want to click on whatever column you want to add a column to, or else click on your row first. But basically once you've clicked on, in this case, they've clicked on column C, and then they click insert, and then they go down to two columns. And then as they say, you can insert one column to the right or insert one column to the left, in which case now that they've added a third column in column D. And so basically what's going to happen at this point though is they're going to write in some stuff into that column. In this case, they're going to write the owner of these tasks, which is helpful if you have your own business or if you're working with a group of people. You want to say, who is the owner of this task? They're doing some basic formatting. They're writing an owner, and then they're basically moving that down to below after clicking enter. And then, of course, you want to populate your rows, in which case they're adding Paul, Heather, and Thomas. Since they've deleted the row for Thomas, I'm not sure what Thomas is up to these days, but that's why you write in a task for Thomas. And then as we get into the Google Docs section more, we'll talk about, how can you share this document then if you need to with Paul, Heather, or Thomas, if that's what you need to do, so they can check off their own tasks, or maybe you're the boss and you're checking off the tasks and they're not the ones checking off the tasks. But anyway, here's an example of also how you can also, change what the colors look like if that's what you're interested in. You can change the font size, the style, the color. You got a lot of formatting options that are available through Google Sheets. So in this case, there's the fill option, which has been circled. And then of course you can choose what color you want your cell to look like. Again, always choose the cell first, in which case it's the to-do cell. In this case, in this presentation, they changed the formatting of a lot of these cells, but they've changed the color on it. Now, in order to then find your sheet in Google Drive, of course, we're going to, if we were actually doing this in person, we could click this other tab now that says My Drive or Google Drive, and then you can find the updated file in your project list, which is what I said earlier. There wasn't a file before, there is a file now, and this is now in your project list of a file under your drive. And then as you can see down here, it says for storage, I mentioned the 15 gigabytes earlier. Now this file, this spreadsheet so far uses 1 kilobyte of 15 gigabytes of storage used. This will start to fill up, and if necessary, you can buy additional storage if you're a really heavy Google user or Google Docs, Google Forms, or Google Drive user. So then, of course, the next thing we want to do is how can we create a meeting agenda with Google Docs? Well, we can do that through what's called, of course, Google Docs. And in fact, Google Docs is my personal story, or Google Docs is not a new a product. Google Docs has been around since 2006. And I remember in library school in 2008, when I was going to library school, one of my earlier adopters of one of my fellow students was using Google Docs, and we all collaborated on a Google Doc together, and this was in 2008. So I guess the first time I used Google Docs was 15 years ago. Boy, does time fly. But anyway, to create a new Google Doc, we're going to do like we did with the Google Sheets, which is we're going to click new. We're going to go to Google Docs. In this case, because we're creating a to-do list, and we probably don't want to do it from scratch because that can involve a lot of formatting for our meeting notes or a meeting agenda. We then choose from a template, in which case there are meeting notes or meeting agendas templates pre-installed. So in this case, we're talking about a meeting that we just had that we wrote up the notes for, and now we want to share them with the group. So of course, in any Word document, you can add text. In this case, it's formatted it with this lorem ipsum text. That's basically just filler text. But you can re-edit any of these lines to change it to be something else. And so here's an example of, of course, you can also format the text like you could any Word document. You just simply highlight it, and then you go ahead and click insert. Come on. And then you click that's one way of doing it, but you can also, in the case of formatting the text color, if you needed to, you can also choose this A option, which is right here, which is also an equivalent as well in Microsoft Word, and you can choose a color that you're happy with. Sorry, this thing's hung up again, in which case now it's a different color. Here's an example of this, of ways of also inserting a comment as well. So the thing with comments, though, is that unlike stuff that's actually written in the document itself, you can add a comment that whoever you share this document with can see. And so basically what it is you'll add the comment. The comment is not in the document itself, but anyone who you're sharing this document with can then view the comment. And those comments can be helpful to better contextualize this document because you're working collaboratively, but you're not working at the same time in all likelihood, and you're also not chatting with each other as you're working on this document. This is why these little notes can be helpful. That way, again, if you share this with somebody else, they can then go in and say, oh, well, I'm the budget person, Yara wants me to update the budget line, so we're going to go ahead and do that. Come on, this thing's hung up again. So next that we're going to see is, I just saw the mouse move. Well, it moved somewhere. But anyway, so moving on. So what about now I just talked about the collaborative process. So then how do we collaborate? Like, how do I share this document with my coworkers or whoever it is I may need to? Well, what you can do is with these comments, though, it's possible to, with these comments, is you can actually put in a comment and type in an email address, and then someone will then be notified that you have written a comment on this document. And then in addition to that, you can also assign these comments as well. So again, typing the little plus next to your comment will allow you to then add in an email address. Now that's writing a comment to allow you to collaborate with others. Here we can see them clicking the assign, and then basically you can assign a comment to somebody, like updating the budget, and you've assigned that to Lulu, and then Lulu can go in and work on it and then sign off on that comment, say that she's done it. Now, the thing though is these are comments, but then how do I actually invite people to then edit this document with me? Well, that's the next step. You can share your files because it's on the cloud. So that means you don't have to email the document to somebody, have them edit it, and then send it back to you. And then you don't know what their edits are until they're done. But you can actually click the share button, which, as we can see on this slideshow, is all the way up here in the top right. There's this share option. When you click on that, you can then select basically, you can add people by adding their email addresses. Now, the thing with the Google Sheets is, Google information is, it works better if the people you're sharing this Google document with, or the Google Sheet, or the Google Forms, or the what have you, if they're going to edit it with you, it helps if they have a Google account, just like you do, to create this Google Sheet or this Google Form. They don't necessarily have to. There is another way around that by sharing a link, but there's some security reasons why you may or may not want to do that, which maybe I'll have time to get to later. But the gist of it is you can add in examples of people. They don't have to have a Gmail account, just like you don't have a Gmail account if you didn't create, like I don't, for work purposes. But you can add in a whatever emails you want to, and then you can choose what permissions they have, which is indicated by this right drop down menu. If you just want them to view the document, you can just have them view the document. If you want them to be able to edit it, then you can have them edit the document. You can also include a message between while you're sending them this link. But basically just know that you can choose the editing levels, and because you are in a sense the owner of the document, you can then revoke those permission levels later on. So if you decide that example@example.com no longer needs to edit this document, you can then revoke the access. And sometimes this is good to always review periodically. Like, for example, if you have people who are collaborating on your website and they've left, you may want to revoke their access, but that's for a whole nother class. But anyway, you can add a comment and you can click send. And then, as I said, you can control who sees your files. Now, by default, your Google files that you are working on are not available publicly. They're only accessible to you because you logged into your Google account in order to view them. But again, you can notify people of all sorts of things, like the agenda document or the budget document or the other stuff that you're working on. Again, you can share files accessed with groups or individuals. Now, this isn't written on here, but when you're sharing your document, there's another part of this sharing where it could say you can choose a permission level, which says that it's not the people that I invite. As long as somebody has this link, anyone can edit the document. That is a way of getting around if you're sharing it with somebody who doesn't have a Google account. The only danger to that, though, is if you trust the person, that they won't share it with other people, so suddenly other people are editing your document because you can't have any control over sharing over the link. You can set the link, you can set it to now nobody with a link can edit it, but that's the only slight danger of sharing the link with somebody is, are they going to be responsible with it? Now, chances are they are, but stuff happens. So that's one possible security thing to think about if you're sharing a document via just the link rather than an invitation, that is just something to be aware of. So what about building a presentation with Google Slides? Of course, you're probably going to present to the boss or something and say, here's what I've been working on, especially if you're working remotely, if you feel that's necessary. Maybe your boss wants an update on what it is that you're up to. But you can do that by going again back to the Google Slides. Basically, we go back to Google Drive, we click the new option. We're going to choose Google Slides. And again, we're also going to be, for the sake of time, because you're busy, you want to create from a template. And then in this case, we're going to choose the status report option. So the way that works is you can access Google Slides. Again, you click new, and then again, we see here's the various templates that are here. In which case, we've got some general presentation options, your big idea, in this case, making presentations that stick. Again, this is just something that's pre-formatted. You can even do like a photo album presentation or a wedding presentation, recipe book, portfolio. You've got a lot of different slides options on here, but in this case, we're clicking one that says status report, which, unlike the other examples, is not actually right here, but it must be there somewhere. In this case, they're using your big idea, making presentation that sticks, is what they're using as a particular template in this regard. So populate and format your presentation. If any of us have used PowerPoint, for example, or other slideshow products, a lot of this is going to look similar. In this case, it's pre-formatted the status report. So now we're going to change it to new marketing is the example that they're using right here, a new marketing campaign. And they even misspelled campaign. I'm surprised. Good on Google for being realistic in these presentation slides or videos. Of course, you want to populate other things in there. You don't necessarily need like your name, but you can include the date if you want. 20XX reminds me of Mega Man, the video game, but that's a little aside. But again, you can change the date. You can change what the text is. You could even move the boxes around if you wanted it to. Here we see an example of that right now, where they moved the time up. For the status report, again, you can reformat this. Of course, we see here on the left-hand side here, we can see all of the slides that are available. So that was the title slide. Now, in addition to that, you can also select what layout that you want the slide to appear as. So this is true of PowerPoint. You can have a title slide, you can have a section header slide. You got title and body, title in 2 columns, title only. A lot of this is basically analogous to what the different the slideshow options that you get through PowerPoint. But again, there's no software for this. This is all accessed through the internet. So you don't have to, so you're not paying for these Google products like you would have to pay for PowerPoint, if you weren't using Office 365, et cetera, if you had like a client version of these products. But again, so you can click the plus button. Again, you can choose one of your next templates. Now, the thing with these templates are these slide formatting is that sometimes the way the initial slide is formatted or the way this presentation is formatted may have an impact on what these options are. They may look slightly different. I've seen that in PowerPoint. But just know that, in general, these are all going to be the same, but occasionally you may see some variances. Excuse me. But anyway, you can also add visuals to your presentation where you can populate and format your presentation. In this case, we're going to go to insert. We're going to click image. What's nice about even PowerPoint had this functionality was that, you can also not just upload a file from your computer, but you can also search the web. If you have any photos that are saved to your Google Drive or saved to Google Photos, which is another Google product. I've used Google Photos with family members. You could also just upload a photo straight from there. You don't necessarily have to save it to your computer first or to your tablet or what have you. In this case, we're going to search the web, and then they chose digital marketing was their search term, which came straight out of Google Images. Now they're also, so you can see here they are, they're searching for digital marketing. Here's some of the images that are available. They can click on one of those images and then they can actually populate it into the document itself, in which case it just automatically appeared. And again, you can add then text boxes or arrows or images or what have you to then populate this. Now there is always a concern about copyright. You want to use royalty-free images if you can, but the whole presentation on copyright is a whole nother presentation, but just know it's very easy to drop in images into a Google Docs or Google presentation, Google Slides presentation, because of all the integration between the different Google products that there are. So in this case, you also then will, of course, want to then share your presentation, just like we saw with the collaboration tools in the Google Docs option. You can then again share this presentation with people or groups, probably more with people than with groups. Google Groups is another part of another thing which I don't do much with, but here you can say, like, you can share it with these people. Again, you've got your editor, but you also got your commenter and your viewer options. So the editor will allow somebody to then edit the presentation. The commenter or commentator will allow someone to do, like in the Google Docs form, like how we saw was, you can then add a comment. Like, let's say Zuri views this, and here you're asking Zuri, let me know what you think of this presentation by leaving a comment. Zuri can leave comments without editing the document itself, which can be helpful. You want her comments. Again, she's able to view this live herself because you invited her. And this is, again, one of the advantages of the cloud. Zuri could be a student Zuri could be a student who maybe is one of your students, or maybe let's talk about like workplace. So it could be one of your coworkers who may live in another state or even another country. This, again, is a very helpful way of sharing these presentations or images with them, and allowing them, again, they can offer their thoughts on it, and you can either take or leave it, but at least they're able to do it, which is a lot more helpful than if something was just saved locally to your computer. Because again, then you have to email it to them, and then they could edit it if you didn't include a password and all that stuff. This just helps avoid all of that. Now here's what I was talking about earlier about the get link thing, which I mentioned in the Google Docs thing. You can also send them a link if you want to, in which cases it says restricted. Only people added can open with the link. This is another form of security. So only Alana or only Zuri can edit it because you invited them and then you sent them the link. Well, as it says below this line here, it says change to anyone with the link, which again is something you really need to think long and hard about if that's what you're going to do. But again, you can do it if you want to. I think this might have changed slightly when again, well, since we have the time, I'll do a live demonstration of these Google products in a moment, but I think this might have changed slightly because I was trying to share it with somebody. I didn't quite see this, but maybe we can practice it later and see what happens. So anyway, we've finished the bulk of the basic presentation because we have the time and we'll probably round out the hour. We don't have to be here for an hour and a half. I'm going to show you a live demonstration of the Google products. So again, recap and resources. So in order, you can use Google Sheets to make a to-do list. In which case, you can add tasks. Again, this is from one of the templates. You can add the date, you can add the time, and because this has been conditionally formatted, if you click those check mark boxes, and again, which is really nice, is it puts a strike through or a line through everything that you've written. You can also create an agenda through Google Docs, and again, you can change all these documents, all these lines. You can then add comments to it. You can also assign tasks to other people if you want to. And then you can also do a Google Slides presentation. With the Google Slides presentation, it's sort of like a PowerPoint, but basically this is what you can use if you want to show to the boss, where maybe it's like, oh, well, here's what I've been up to, or here's the latest budget information, etc. Again, all of this is saved to the cloud, so you could work it. So maybe your workplace didn't provide you with a work laptop to take home. Well, again, you can access these collaborative tools, whether it's Google or Microsoft, or maybe your company's using something else. You can access them again remotely anywhere with an internet connection. So this, again, something where it's very easily pulled off as long as the internet is working. And it's not geolocated either. You could, again, leave work at work, but if all else fails and you're off in Europe somewhere on some vacation, you realize, oh no, I made a typo on slide number 3. You can go into it through a web connection in Europe and change that typo. If your boss is like, there's a typo, well, you can fix it. Now, there are other apps as well, which we're not going to really go into in this presentation. But for example, you could use Google Forms to create surveys, or as I mentioned earlier, we had a really fun Star Wars virtual escape room where I use Google Forms for this end, but usually you're using Google Forms to create surveys. Google Sites will allow you to create websites. That was another presentation I gave like months ago, was about one possible way of using Google Sites to create a website. And then there's also like Google Calendar. So if any of you have an Android phone, chances are, you may be using Google Calendar, whether you're aware of it or not. But Google Calendar will allow you again to manage your schedules as well. You can also use a video conferencing tool through Google Meet, which I personally have not really used, although they didn't mention this on here, I do use Google Voice. Google Voice is a way of creating like a phone number through Google. We used that in the early days of COVID here at the library because we couldn't get into the library to use the phones, and we didn't want to use our cell phones in order to collaborate, in order to call back patrons. So you can also use Google Voice to then get your own phone number. And what some people like to use that for is they'll list that phone number. If they're concerned, they'll get telemarketing calls. That way those calls don't get to take directly to your cell phone. Those messages, all those annoying, your insurance is about to expire, get a new insurance for your car, or get a new warranty, all those can go to a Google Voice number if that's what you want to do. So again, what's your action plan? You want to try and write down one thing you will do after this workshop to grow your digital skills. Again, whether you're using Google products or Microsoft Office products or just something, is know that collaboration is very much possible. We do it here at the library, because we live in an interconnected world, that we can, again, that we're able to collaborate in a way that simply wasn't always possible in the past. In fact, your little piece of trivia for today is the reason, this is why the internet exists, because of collaboration. There were a bunch of academic institutions, we're talking like the 1960s, and they wanted to be able to collaborate remotely with each other by sharing documents to each other through electronic messages. Well, what they were able to do is they were able to work with the Department of Defense through DARPA, and they were able to get DARPA to fund a way of electronically communicating with their fellow universities, and that's how we got email. And out of email evolved the internet, and the internet became commercialized in the 1980s, but that's what the internet was based on, was based off of emails for ways of collaborating digitally with academic institutions wanting to collaborate with your colleagues. So collaboration is key to the internet. It's been around forever. And just know that if you want to continue your learning on YouTube, Grow with Google does have its own channel. They have a lot more videos on here than presentations that I'll be doing, but you could go on their YouTube channel and watch what they have to show you. I have their videos also saved to libraries, Grow with Google playlist as well. But they're always adding new videos. If you have a Google account, you can also subscribe to them and get notifications when there's a new video. Google also offers career certificates. I don't believe that these are free, but these are ways of building your skill set. I will say though, if you're a Carol Stream Library card holder, we currently offer access to LinkedIn Learning, which is available for you to watch as well. And they will also generate you career certificates. The only thing with the LinkedIn Learning thing is because it's a library, because you're using your library card number, they can create the certificate for you, but it will not auto-populate in your name like it used to. But just know that that you can, through Google, you can also go through like a career focused training. Here's some examples of data analytics, digital marketing and e-commerce, IT support, project management, UX design. UX is user experience design. That's how people like create new websites or create new experiences for people, where you need to go through UX design first, or ideally you should. But as it says, no experience necessary. You can learn at your own pace. You can stand out to employers if they'll accept that sort of thing. And then there's also a path to in-demand jobs as well. There's also some additional stuff that Google wants to highlight. Google.com/grow. For teachers and students, you can bring digital tools into your classroom. For local businesses, help new customers find you online. I might give that presentation someday. For job seekers, boost your resume with a new certification, which can be helpful. And for developers, you can learn to code or take your skills to the next level. It's always helpful to learn coding skills. I sometimes use code.org, but I don't have outside of HTML, I don't have much coding knowledge. But again, these are just additional things you can think about. And then these are again where the resources that were mentioned, remote work, applied digital skills primer, Google accounts, again, account.google.com, not accounts like I said earlier. All these Google Docs, you don't need to memorize all of these. If you're on Google, you've signed in using your Google account. Again, you just click those 9 little dots in the top right-hand corner. And then these are, with the exception of some of these ones at the top, the rest of these old Google Drive options are all listed below it. So it's not something you have to memorize. And with that, I say thank you, but just thank you for participating in this static presentation. I'm going to end the recording, and then I'll go ahead and show you how to access Google Docs and Google Forms, and show you some of this stuff in live action. And then we should most likely be done by 8 o'clock. So again, I'm just going to go ahead and stop the share here. And then as I'm giving the presentation, the live presentation, if you have any questions, let me know. I'm fairly familiar with most Google products, but you're welcome to ask a question too. So I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording. And with that, I say thank you again for coming out here.